want to have microphone? What?
マイクあっちゃん。
はい。ありがとう。あった方がいいかも。Okay. Thank you so much. Hi, Taigusuyo, Chuganabira. Hello, everyone. How are you today? One ne? Oh. Hi, Sai. Let's bring the Uchina spirit. Thank you all for coming so much. One ne, Midorutun, Sakiyama, Mariko Yaibin. My name is Mariko Sakiyama Middleton. I will be your host today here at the People's Forum. Before we begin, I would like to do a quick land acknowledgement. We are here as guests on Lenape land, coming from all over, but just to honor those indigenous peoples who have stewarded the lands that we are now upon. I would also like to thank the People's Forum for hosting us. This is our third year celebrating the Okinawan experience at the UN. And thank you to some of the repeat folks that have come year over year. And then to those who are joining us online. We know we have a huge diaspora out there, so thank you for joining us virtually. And so without further ado, I will go ahead and begin with a prayer in Uchinaguchi. UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues side event no fui de biru. Agai nu kamiganashi. Hi nu kamiganashi. Nishi nu kamiganashi. Hi nu kamiganashi. Ukami no menso charukutu. Shirigoa fu de biru. Mieman timisori. Utabi misori. And with that, we have invited in the directions, our ancestors, and we have asked them to watch over us and to enjoy this time and revel in the spirit that we are here together. For those of you that are joining in person, thank you. For those of you who are joining in person, we have some gifts for you. It has just been Shimi in Okinawa, which is a time where we visit our ancestors, our ancestral graves. We have for you uchikabi, which is money, paper money for the afterlife, which must be burned in order for it to go from this material world into the afterworld. We also have hirauko, which is Okinawan incense, again, to be burned. And it takes our prayers, all of our feelings, and then into the spirit realm. So these that we have given you, please take them home and burn them. If you are worried about it not holding on to it because it's so precious, that is not the intention for these items. Please burn them and give them to your ancestors. We will be bringing more again next year. Okay, well, thank you so much. I also wanted to acknowledge that we had a GoFundMe, and I have listed the names here. But those people who donated to make it possible for us to access the United Nations, it is a huge financial lift to get everybody to come here and advocate on behalf of the issues that are happening within the Ryukyus. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts, for making that support possible. All right, and so for today's flow, I just wanted to let you know over the next 2 hours, we are going to have an opening song by Victor Kinjo, and then we will hear from Shinako Oyakawa, A-chan, Harina, and then we'll have a short Q&A, and then we will move to myself, Ko Lewis, who will be presenting on Hajichi, and then unfortunately Nozomi-san, who was going to come, was delayed, her train was delayed and then canceled, so she's unable to join us, but she is here in spirit. And then we will close with Victor's update, and then we'll have a Q&A. Because we have a little bit of time at the end, we would also like to open it up to you all to ask questions about the UN experience. So if you have any questions, feel free to be thinking about those right now. We will get to them at the end. And then we'll have a closing, a kachashi, and we would like to take a group photo. So without further ado, thank you again all so much for being here. We'd like to invite Victor up to sing Tinsagu no Hana.
はい、saya Chuganabira, Wanne Kinjo Victoria Bin, Yuta Sarugutu Unige Sabira. Hello everyone, my name is Victor. So thank you very much for coming. So we are going to perform Nation's ancestral song of our people, Chinsagu no Hana. There's the lyrics there. We are recovering a lot of our language through music. So if you can help us sing, we are also helping our language to be alive.
We all get to sing. You all also now get to sing. リナのいいね。
マイクで歌う。
Tinsagu no hana ya, timisa timisumiti, uya no yoshigoto ya, timisumiri. Uya no yoshigoto ya, timuni sumiri. Nashibana ni gotun, nayuruguto ya shiga, nasayu ikarado, naramu sadami. Nasayu ikarado, naramu sadami.
Victor, do you want to explain the Tinsagu no Hana? Just quickly?
Sure. So this ancestral song, as I said, is Uchinaguchi, which is one of our 7 endangered languages from Ryukyu, Okinawa. We believe and we can see that the music is playing a very important role to revitalize our language, because our generations, we are forgetting, because of colonization, Uchinaguchi is endangered. However, in our communities, we still sing in our language, And Chinsagu no Hana, we chose just 2 verses, because the first verse is remembering us to honor our ancestors, our parents, grandparents, to know that we are here, but there's a history before us. Even at the UN, we know that we are here because many fighters, many women, especially women, indigenous, came in the 70s, came through the time to fight. So that's why we also can be here today. And also the last verse that we chose is talking about dreaming and working for this world that we want to live, we want to see. Like, we are living in such a hard times, but if we dream together, if we work together, things can change. And if we don't try, we will never get it. But if you try, I'm pretty sure that we can do very good together. So this is the message we brought the Chinsagu no Hana. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Victor-san. We will now pass it over to Shinako Oyakawa, who will speak on indigenous language.
ぐすよ、つやめんそちきみそちっぺにフェレービル。うちなからゆしりてちゃびたん、ウェガシナコンディアビン。I will talk about the language issue. In UN, we talk about so many issues like recognition, language, health, militarism, environment, and so on. And today I will pick up this one. On Wednesday, after we had the talk, our statement, and then Japanese government came and said that Japan does not hold the view that people born in Okinawa are indigenous. That they just said in front of us. We were talking about whether people have Ryukyuan indigenous roots or not. It's not simply about being born in Okinawa prefecture. Yet they are making statements that conflict indigeneity with the local community. So we're talking about indigenous issue, indigeneity. We have our ancestor, and that's connected to the land, and then we share the same environment, language, culture. And even after the colonization, and even after so many injustice, but we still proud of being Uchinanchu, Ryukyuan, and we still have the language and culture. We were talking about this, not just the local community. And it's so hard. Assimilation policy is really huge in Ryukyu, Okinawa. So we were taught to be Japanese. I think you have heard about the boarding school, in Canada, America, everywhere. But we still have it, To go to school means you have to learn and speak and act and think like Japanese. We don't have any chance to learn about our own history and language. And after as so many, the definition of indigenous people usually go like this. The people have lived in a specific region since before colonization and have deep historical and cultural ties to the land. 2, have a history of having their land taken away and their rights restricted by foreign invaders or settlers. And then also 3, continue to face structural injustice to this day. Through the process of colonization, our way of life is taken away. Our language and culture were lost. We were forced to assimilate to the colonized society. In our case, it's Japan. And it has become difficult for us to maintain our own indigenous identity. Yet, so that they kind of push the Okinawan people, I just gonna say right-wing people. And then they sent them to UN, and then they did the testimony, something like, we are not indigenous. No, we are not indigenous. We are Japanese. We are truly Japanese. So those who go to UN and talking about their indigeneity, that's lie. We are truly Japanese. How sad it is, We can be, part of like a Japanese society as local culture, but at the same time, we have rights to be proud of ourselves as indigenous people, and we can respect our ancestor, the way of life we had it for long time. There's in Uchinaguchi, we have a word, if you forget our language, we forget our nation. And if you forget our nation, we forget about our ancestor. I think this is sadly, but it's just, showing the evidence of that. So language is just, throughout language, we can think about what the Ryukyu means, and then what's the meaning to be Uchinanchu Ryukyuan, and then how to respect our ancestor. Oh, true. So this is the delegation who went to UN Human Council to say we are not indigenous. The indigenous people are not like that. We are truly Japanese. Look at us. Only three people are Uchinanchu, Okinawan, and then other people are Japanese. And they say, one of the Japanese students said, UN doesn't have any right to say who is indigenous. And then those people from Okinawa are Japanese. So do you have any rights to say we are Japanese or we are indigenous? Indigenous identity is really important because that's, you can declare, you can understand the history, language, and then the connection to the land and then the people. So but it's getting more difficult because of assimilation. So we really needs to think about it right now. So the language loss. Language loss refers to the process by which individual or community lose, their native or first language. And in Japan, ever since after 1979, Japan forcibly annexed our nation called Ryukyu. So the school system brought, and then in education, we have to speak Japanese, and then the bilingual was not allowed, so we need to lose our language and we have to acquire Japanese language. That's how we lost the language. This is a statistic, the research what the Okinawa Prefecture government have done in 2024. And it says how much you can understand the Ryukyuan language nowadays. And then you can understand it like fully, very much, or some. I don't really understand the language, and I don't understand it at all. So if you look at the data, say like in like a teenagers or less, that's who say I understand the language pretty well, it's 0%. 20s, 3.5. 30s, 4.6. I'm in 40s, and then that's 4.0. So only people who say confidentially, like I do understand the language, is over 70 years and over, but that's still 40%. That's how, it's, the language loss is like a drastic rate. It's like a decline, the language, like a speaker who can understand and then speak the language nowadays. And then this is also like, how much do you speak or how much do you use indigenous language? Okay. And then those who say, oh, I mainly use the language is even 7 years and then above is only like 11%. And, maybe you can use the middle column is like, maybe it's for the greeting. Hi, Sai. Thank you, Nifedebiru. But even count that part, it's still really like, low. And then those who say, no, I'm not gonna use it, and then I never use it, is really, the portion is really big. But this one, it says like, do you think you want to, your children to be the Ryukyuan language speaker? And then most of the people say yes. So it's, more than 80% of the people say, yes, I hope my kids or my children or the children in the community could learn the local language. It's, the reality is really severe, but we still have hope and we still wish our children can be the local language, indigenous language speaker. And we talk about it all the time, but then what are you doing? Who is going to do? And what are you doing? Think about, like a dream about it, it's easy. But just do it, in the practice, it's really difficult. And this is one of my challenge for this, like 8 years so far. I established the after-school program in Naha City in Okinawa Island. And we teach children local language, our Okinawan language, I said, in Okinawa Island. We have about 60 students in 2 after-school programs, and then they don't have any chance to learn about Okinawan language at school because we are not recognized as indigenous people by Japanese government, and we don't have any chance to learn it as a school subject. Education in Japan is so controlled by, it's like a central oriented. So everything, curriculum, textbook, and then everything comes from Tokyo, and we have no rights to change it. So I thought it's really nice to have the local community place for children so that we can learn it together. I am not the, I didn't born speaking Uchinaguchi. I learned it only after I studied abroad in Hawaii. I saw many Hawaiian indigenous people were trying to revitalize their language, and I finally realized, oh, what about my language? I speak Japanese, I speak English, but I don't speak, my own language. So I, make plays for children, and then they do the, performance sometimes. And we visit in so many, indigenous really historical places and beautiful places all around Okinawa. This is important because if you don't know about Okinawa, if you don't know about the beauty of Okinawa, it's really hard to understand about our culture and language. So I do a lot of school trip, and then this is my highlight today. It's going native means going global as well. We do a lot of Uchinaguchi practice, but it's not just to think about ourselves. It's so nice. We have a diaspora. Okinawan diaspora from Hawaii, Brazil, America, so many other places. And then they visit me, so I always invite them to my kids' club so they can meet the Uchinanchu people, so they can have a chance to think about what's to be, Ryukyuan Uchinanchu. And then he's a student from Stanford University, and then he's visiting the kids' club, and he studies language revitalization research, so we do the project together. And then also, we have so many guests visiting me from all over the world. The indigenous people come visit me. So I always take them to our kids club. And then this is the Maori delegation. And then they do haka in front of kids. It's just so close like this. And they're so surprised and so moved and excited. So, to learn about the language, it's not just close yourself in the closet. You know about yourself, and you have chance to connect the people, and you can connect the other, Uchinanchu in other world, like, all over the world, and you can understand there are so many indigenous people around the world, just like us. They are keeping the language alive, keeping the culture alive, then they want to communicate with us. So we teach Uchinaguchi and then English, and then we pray together so they can come to America, they can go to Brazil, they can meet Uchinanchu people around the world. I think indigeneity is really important, but it's so easily, dismissed. So, but we really have to think about who we are and then what's important for us. Yeah, that's something that I've been thinking about it so far. I don't have time, ne? It's a little bit like, just not just talking. Our elder translated the harapekomushi, the hungry caterpillar, for us. It's wata mitang orumushi, not full and then green insect. Wata mitang orumushi. Can you repeat it together? Say no. Wata mitang orumushi. Like this. Ai. Kinu whānu wāpinkai. Ai, kinu whānu wāpinkai. Gumasaru tamagu. Uchichu mega. Tinkara. Nchoi bitan. Tida ga nubuti. Nukuba ticharu. Nichiyobinu. Asayai bitan. Bondi, tamagu kara, kusaru, oru mushinu, mariti chabitan. Oru mushiya, yashikunatakutu, kamimun kamei, hajimiyabitan. This is one of the, the kids' favorite books, so we read it together. That's how we enjoy our, language alive. But this is kind of like a Western, book too. So we need to have our own book because we don't have like a pero candy, none of that. Lollipop, salami, cherry pie. So we did our version too. This is another one me and my friend made, Cinquatici. One pumpkin. Nabera tachi. Two rufa. And then basanai michi. サーターアンダギユーチチデークニイチチムーチムーチsomething like that. We can make so many story out of it. That's how we enjoy, and then the language with children. Ipenife David, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shinako-san. That was very fun. I hope you enjoyed it. And this is available online as well, so feel free to go back and reference it. And if you have questions, please connect with Shinako after. I will now pass it over to Ah-chan.
I'm gonna stand up just because I'm feeling kind of fidgety today, but I'm tall, so I'll stand behind Shinako and Mariko. So haitai gusuyo tu ganabira, wanne ufugushika chan yaibin, watta munchuya tsukazanu egun yaibin yutasaragutu nige sabira. I'm Alexis McClellan Ufugushku. I'm mixed race Uchinanchu. My munchu is Egun clan from Tsukazan in Hayabaru, Okinawa main island. I have been lucky enough to be on this UN journey with Shinako-san for many, many years now, since 2019. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about what Indigenous rights look like. I think while we're having important conversations about indigeneity and the challenges of the term Senju Minzoku in the Japanese language context, I think it's important to also tie it to rights, because we're also, while we're doing the cultural reclamation, while we're doing the advocacy, we need to know what we're advocating for. We need to know what legal backing we have, you know? Okay, so specifically talking a little bit about some of the articles of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. So this was a declaration that was ratified in 2007 after, I think, 20 years of trying to work through different drafts and finally get this through the UN. And it sets a minimum standard on the inherited and inherent rights that Indigenous peoples have. One of those rights is the right to self-determination, and for Indigenous peoples to be self-identifying as Indigenous. I know Adina's gonna be talking about how a lot of this work is being done already in our communities, but with different terminology. Many of us go by Uchinanchu or Ryukyuan, for instance, and how we're kind of talking about the same thing, just using different words for it. And it is the obligation of member states or countries to be upholding these rights. At the time that the declaration was ratified, there was 4 countries that did not ratify it. The United States, shock, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Now, all 4 of those have ratified, so every country in the world that is party to the United Nations has ratified the UN DRIP, Japan included. So there are 46 articles and a preamble explicitly outlining Indigenous rights. You can find a really beautifully made PDF online. I highly recommend looking at it. It's translated into not only the 6 UN languages, but there are official translations into many other languages as well that are available through the UN website, including in Japanese. But it's really hard to go through this very quickly. I really want to emphasize, if we take nothing else away from today, we have these rights already. As Indigenous peoples, we have these rights. It is about claiming them and fighting for them. What I have to the left is part of the preamble, and I chose this screenshot for the last paragraph. It says, emphasizing the contribution of the demilitarization of the lands and territories of Indigenous peoples to peace, economic and social progress and development, understanding and friendly relations among nations and peoples of the world. This sounds so much like what our elders and our contemporaries in Okinawa have been talking about for, I don't know, the last 70, 80 years now. So we're already talking about these things. We have other resources to do so as well. So just quickly to go through a couple. I think it ended up being more than a couple, so please bear with me. I think a couple means like 8, but Article 2 says Indigenous peoples and individuals are free and equal to all other peoples and individuals and have the right to be free from any kind of discrimination in the exercise of their rights, in particularly that based on their Indigenous origin or identity. I chose this one because I think many of us have the memory of 2016, that police officer calling an oba-chan a dojin outside of the Takai protests. We need to be linking that type of action to her right to protest under the UN DRIP, her right to not be discriminated against under the UN DRIP because she is Uchinanchu. Article 4, Indigenous peoples in exercising their right to self-determination, the ability of Uchinanchu, of Ryukyuans, to decide the future of our ancestral homelands, of our politics. Have the right to autonomy or self-government in matters related to their internal and local affairs, as well as ways and means for financing their autonomous functions. This one, I think many of us are aware of the 2019 referendum that unapologetically said, no, we do not want the Henoko base to be built. Tying that to our Article 4 rights, we have the right to self-determine what happens in our lands. We said no, everybody else should have to respect that. Article 10, Indigenous peoples shall not be forcibly removed from their lands or territories. No relocation shall take place without the free, prior, and informed consent of the Indigenous peoples concerned, and after agreement on just and fair compensation, and where possible, the option of return. This is a new one that I added because I was hearing about more self-defense force, Jettai bases, being constructed in the rest of the Ryukyu archipelago, not just Uchina, on Miyako, on Yonaguni, and how the government is preparing people to have to potentially evacuate, no promise for them to be able to return. They cannot force us off our lands. If they do so, they have to compensate us, and they have to be trying to bring us home afterwards. Article 13 and 14 I added just for Shinako because it's about the right to control what our people learn, whether it's our history, our culture, our languages. We have a right to pass these things down to our next generations and learn them in our present generations. That is my time. So Article 15, Indigenous peoples have the right to the dignity and diversity of their cultures, traditions, histories, and aspirations, which shall be appropriately reflected in education and public information. And then the second part is that states, so in this case, Japanese government shall take effective measures in consultation, working with us and cooperation with the Indigenous peoples concerned to combat prejudice and eliminate discrimination and promote tolerance, understanding, and good relations among Indigenous peoples and all other segments of society. So thinking about the Koshen tournament, how the people who managed the baseball park said that Uchinanchu, who were supporting Okinawa High School, could not do chondara at the national baseball game. We have the right to be able to be proud of our youth in whatever way we want. We cannot be discriminated against for dressing as chondara. We cannot be discriminated against for coming into a baseball game with sanshin or kachikachi. We have these rights. We get to be proud of ourselves however we choose. And then this is my favorite. I joke with, I don't know if Lisa's online or Dai, but that I'm going to get Article 30 tattooed on my forehead. So people will have to ask me what it means every time. But so I'm a historian by training. I'm really interested in tying the Indigenous peoples movement globally and Ryukyuan people's involvement in that movement back to the referendums against the Henoko bases. So going from a demilitarized point of argumentation to Indigenous rights point of argumentation. And Article 30 is super, super straightforward. Military activities shall not take place in the lands or territories of Indigenous peoples unless justified by relevant public interest or otherwise freely agreed to with or requested by the Indigenous peoples concerned. In 2019, over 70% of voters said no to the new base in Henoko. There was 2 referendums prior to that in Nago City that also said no to the new base in Henoko. We have the ability to say no to new bases, whether they be American bases or Jetai bases. We have that ability. We have the right to control what happens in our land. We have the right to say no to militarism and military bases. So, next steps. People in Ryukyu need to see that Indigenous rights exist. If we keep talking about ourselves in terms of the Japanese discourse of Senju Minzoku, then it is always going to be that this term has been used to exclude us. It means that we do not get rights, when in fact it's the opposite. As Indigenous people, as Ryukyuan people, we have these rights. It is about claiming them. So I want to print little books of the UN drip in Japanese and give them out to like everybody on the street at the next Uchidanchu Taikai, you know? I want to have big banners like this one, just with the UN drip translated into all of the languages that Ryukyuans speak. And maybe like buy an advertisement outside of Kensho with like the important articles of the UN drip, just so like whoever is the next Chiji has to like wake up every morning, walk to work, and read about the rights that we have. All right, Yuta Sarikutini Sabiani He Debitan.
Thank you so much, Lex. That was amazing. And so next we have Rina Matayoshi Yogi.
Okay. Hi. When I was back in Okinawa, I was so frustrated. Like this indigenous like discourses are always talked in English, and a lot of Okinawan people speak Japanese. So I will do that in Japanese, and yes. So, これこんなしちゃうの？こっち？ All right. So, 日本語でやります。自分のなんだっけ？Where do I start? So, what is なんか先住民族って日本語で言ったらすごいなんか先住民族みたいなすごい漢字が並ぶからすごいねびっくりするんですけど、それでじゃあなんか先住民族ってさっきもあーちゃんもしなこさんも出してたけど、この国連のでまあなんか自分の自己決定権っていうのが一番基本的にはあって、でそれでじゃあどういう基準でそれをどういう基準で自己決定したらいいのかみたいなの基準があるんですよ。こうなって英語で書いてある。でこれ日本語にもなってます。で、これを考えた時になんだっけな、そう自分レベルでやって、でこの自分でこう先住民族として認識していることで、そのコミュニティの一員であることで、植民地化以前とその植民地化の前の歴史と自分のつながりを理解していることで、周辺と領域周辺の自然資源とのつながりを持っていることとか、独自の社会的経済的制度的とか言語とかを持っていることで、非支配的な集団であることっていうところが、あとなんだこうアンセスターから先祖から受け継いだ環境とか制度とかをこう文化とかを維持しようとしていることっていうのがあるんですけど、めっちゃ沖縄じゃんとか思うんだけど、で、これをまあ、私も最初はすごいこれを見た時にイエス先住民族なんだけど、その大きい漢字とか植民地主義とかっていう漢字と自分を結びつけることがやっぱり難しかったのはある。で日本の国籍だし、日本のパスポート持ってるし、こうやって日本語しゃべるし、まあ日本人っていうのもあると思う。で、でもこの私のこれ あ、そうだ、ここですみません、ちゃんとスライドができてないんですけど、私がこの先住民族のアイデンティティに最初気づいたみたいなのは、なんで沖縄ってずっとこんななのかな、なんでずっと米軍基地があるのかな、なんでずっと貧困とか、なんでずっとこう大和なんていうの、こう日本をこうなんか憧れるみたいなのがなんでずっとあるのかなっていうのが、でなんでずっと無視されるのかなって思ってたわけで、こうね、県民大会も何回も開いて、で80年も変わらない、もしくはちょっと悪化してるかもしれないみたいなで、それをずっと思ってて、であと私はそういうのをすごい内面化してたから、やっぱり大和に行かなきゃ、その東京に行ってこうキャリアウーマンになるみたいな思ってたんだけど、でもそこに行った時に誰も沖縄のこと喋ってないみたいな。でそこで私はそのフェミニズムとかこの MeToo ムーブメントとかにこう参加してた時に、誰も沖縄の話をしていないっていうのにすごい気づいて、で OK、 じゃあメディアがそれを放送しないから、じゃあなんで放送しないのとか、なんでみんな興味ないのってね、すごい思ってた。でこんなにフェミニズムとか MeToo とかすごい盛り上がってきてるのに、なんで米軍の性暴力の話誰もしないのって思ってた。でなんかすごい私がこの人頭いいって思ってる人でも、こううちのお父さんお母さんたちから聞いてた、こう大和に行った時にこう差別されても頑張ってきたんだよみたいな話を誰も知らない、なんでだろうっていうのがすごいあった。でそれで調べ始めたっていうのがあって、でなんかこう調べ始めると、このなんかよく日本の文脈で言われてる、この沖縄に基地があるのは地理的優位性があるからだとかめっちゃ言われるんだけど、それもなんでって見てったら、あんまりなんていうの、地理的優位性って嘘じゃんっていうのが分かって、でこれは地理的優位性じゃなくて政治的に決められてるっていうのも分かってきたし、でそれをこう見ていった時に、でこう市民活動としてそれを理解しようとした時に、なんかね止まるんだよね、この理解が。ここでなんかメイクセンスしないっていうところが出てきて、その時に私はこの英語へのアクセスとか、東京に行った時にこの国際的なんかオーガニゼーションみたいなところで働いてて、でその時にこう My People のために働いてる人たちがいたのね。このネイティブアメリカの人たちも、ここのネイティブの人たちもそうだし、なんかヨーロッパのネイティブの人たちもそうだし、なんかこう My People で働いてる人たちがいて、で Who is my people っていうのをすごい感じ始めた。で My people、 私の人たちって誰なんだろうっていうのをすごい考えてたの。でこれをねちょっと調べるときに調べてみたんだけど、自分でこの日本語で調べた時と英語で調べた時の結果が全然違うわけ。英語で調べた時、もう AI ですらRyukyuans はもうなんか As Japanese speaking East Asian ethnic group indigenous to Ryukyu Islands って英語で調べたら AI ですらそれを言うわけでここに出てくるのがMinority Rights Group、 これはもうなんか UN にも来てたけど、そういうなんか Rights とか Indigenous Rights のすごい大きいなんかオーガニゼーションがRyukyuanの話をしてる。で日本語で調べた時に琉球人先住民族論みたいな、なんか一個そういう考え方があるよみたいな書き方がされてる、ウィキペディアで。で琉球新報とかしかも参政党が出てくるっていうね、一番上に。これは私のアルゴリズムもあるかもしれないんですけど、そういうなんか認識の問題みたいな感じで日本語で調べると出てくる。でしかも参政党だし産経ニュースだし、もうなんかめっちゃ右の日本語情報しか出てこないっていうのが、これ情報にすごい格差がある、日本語で調べた時とっていうのがすごいあるなと思って、で私はこう自分はそのなんかプリビレッジなんていうの、こう特権がある、やっぱり両親いてこう英語の教育にアクセスできたから英語で調べても分かるけど、なんかそうやって日本語だけで調べた時にそういう情報にしか行き当たらないっていうのがあるから、ぜひしなこさんが書いたのを読んでください。牛井さんとか、あとこういう Google も英語のサイトで自動翻訳してぜひ読んでくれたらいいなと思います。でね、なんだっけ、どこだっけ、 そうそう、それで、でその時に私マリコのポッドキャストを聞き始めたわけで、その時にインディジネイティなんか植民地主義、先住民族、私先住民族なのみたいなで、そういうところでやっぱり先にこうやってた人たちの情報がすごい助かった。ありがとう。でごめん。でこれ私のメモなんだけど、なんでかっていうと、これをやったのはね、なんかこのボックスに入ってるのがなんかこう日本語のこうやってさっきも言ったけどこう Google すると日本語の文脈の中でしかあと2分文脈の中でしかその、理解沖縄の人っていうことを日本語の文脈で理解しようとするとぶつかるのどっかに。でその時に日本語とか日本社会の文脈で理解しようとするとそこが見えなくなるんだけど、でも先住民族とかなんていうのか国際的な世界の中で沖縄を理解しようとする時にこのボックスを取り外してみるの。そうするとこれ私の落書きなんか太陽3があって3がこう囲われてるとキラキラできないんだけど、ボックス外したらもっと他の3があってみんなコネクトできるみたいなこうイメージが頭の中であって、そうジャパニーズの中だけじゃなくて国際的な中で自分たちを理解しようとすることで、あとねこれ動画まあいいや後でOK これどうなってやんの？Oh, amazing.
Possible solutions, situations and problems that we're running into. We're not able to mention them all. However, let's say,
そうこれはちょっとあんまり、10秒ぐらいなんだけど、これはガザリさんはインドネシアにマックの人で先住民の人なんだけど、この人がThe nation state が国家がやりたいことって Indigenous people がエンパワーメントされないようにしたいからやっぱりこの情報も遮断するし教えないしでもここに来て私たちはこう学べるツールがあるで時にこうガダリさんがねしなこさんに来て琉球とこのアフリカの先住民族の人ここをアイソレートしたいわけ。私たちがつながらないようにしたい。ネーションステートはそれをやってほしくないからエンパワーメントしてほしくないからじゃあ私はエンパワーメントしてほしくないのを拒否すると思ってこう自分たちでエンパワーメントするその先住民族のアイデンティティをクレームすることは他の世界の中で自分たちを理解して他の先住民族とつながることだなっていうのはすごい今回国連に行って感じた。でも本当になんかしかも起こってること本当に同じで沖縄で起こってることが本当に世界中で起こっててでこれがつながったからといってすぐ米軍基地がなくなるわけじゃないけれどもエンパワーメントする世界に仲間がいる世界にツールがあるこういう法律があるライツが already あるっていうことが分かるっていうことは80年100年変わってきてない沖縄の現状を変えるために私は必要なことの一つだと思っております。はい、でI'm studying social justice education でちょっとグラジュエットスクールなことをしたかったんですけどソーシャリゼーションこうやってその場所に生まれてしまったそれを家族学校いろんなところでソーシャリゼーションされていってそれが自分の中にインターナライズされてノーマライズされていくでそれから出ようとするときにやっぱり怖いわけ怖いしすごいコンフュージョンするしなんか不安になるしなんか国連に行ってたちょっとよくわからない人たちみたいにイグノランスなんていうのこう知らないふりなのかわかんないけどでそれがやっぱり中心にあってそこからこうそれがもうずっとサイクルリプリケイト再生産され続けていってしまっているんだけれども私たちはこれをリベレートすることができるでこのクリティカルインシデントなんかって気づいた時にその時にコミュニティを求めてほしいわけ。なんだろうこれ気づいたけど何なんだろうっていう時にちょっと情報を探しに行ってほしい。で、自分だけでそれを考えるんじゃなくてそのコミュニティとぜひつながってほしいし誰かとそれを話をしてこれ違うかもこれかもしれないっていうのをぜひ考えてほしい。でそれの中の中心にあるっていうのは自分への respect、self esteem とかself love とか balance、joy、supporting、security、spiritual base なんか それがコアにあるはずっていうのを、はい、あります。1分もあるの？そうそうだから今多分私たちがやろうとしているのはそのコアレーションとか、reaching out。そうまず私しなこさん日本語だったらそれで英語できる人はもうなんかここでいっぱい喋ってほしいし、もう知ってる人にぜひなんか話をして聞いてみてほしい。でこれは私日本人に対しても別に日本人のとか言ってるわけじゃなくて It's invitation to。で日本人も脱植民地ディコロナイズすることは日本人にとってもいいことで、いっぱいフェミニズムもみんな頑張ってるでしょ。だからみんなでコアレーションつながろうぜっていう話なんです。はい。ではい、終わりです。はい、すいません。はい。
Thank you so much, Rina-san. So this is a time where if anybody has questions from the audience for our 3 speakers so far, maybe we have time for 1 or 2 questions. And if not, we can certainly move on. As you can see, we have a lot to say. So we invite does anybody feel free to raise your hand? And I know there was actually a question from online. Just don't do you want to?
Our presenters were telling us how a group of Japanese representatives came to the UN and spoke kind of over them at the presentation. I'm wondering, has the UN ever seen that happen before for a host nation to come in to the Indigenous People Summit to make statements like that over them?
Yes. Yeah, so Ko was asking whether or not it's common for countries' permanent missions to actually attend meetings for Indigenous peoples and also make statements. For a long time, it was notable that Japan did not send anyone. So this was the first time the Japanese seat was filled since 2018. In the past, they've come to expert mechanism on the rights of Indigenous peoples, and they walk in for one session and they read the same statement every year, and then when they're done, they close it and they walk away and we don't see them again. But so it is common. There are some countries, such as Guyana, for instance, who will make statements every single item of the meeting, being like, we have no Indigenous peoples, this doesn't apply, don't let these people back in. So this is common. Some countries, such as the Nordic countries, will be like, all these other countries need to be respecting the rights of Indigenous people. So it is really varied depending on the country's politics as well. But yeah.
Okay, I don't really have a question because I'm too ignorant. Although I lived in Japan a long time ago. In 1960, I went there when I was 19, and I ended up at Karishi Tokyo Daikaku, which at that time was extremely progressive. And I could understand you going back and forth between the languages, but the subtleties of, and I knew there were great subtleties there, and but I wish you'd take one and just explain it in if you didn't mind. But I think that it's for the world to go forward, truly, we actually, well, we need you and all the others to continue, but with a lot more support. And it makes me want to cry, I'm sorry. Because I don't know how to support you. I mean, I know how to support some U.S. Indigenous people. I support this man.
Thank you for that.
And it's very important to me. And I can be selfish and say, I have a great deal to learn. And I think that if there's some way we could get out there, this is what you have to learn, like the dominant culture has to learn. And I had a unique experience of of being, I would say, on the ground in China with the people that live, work, and make their living there, doing something very unusual. And I had so much to learn. And so I just want to put that on the table, that's all. And thank you very much. I'm so happy I got to be here.
Thank you so much.
Karma or something.
Yeah.
I want to say, like, okay, 1 minute. So I have a good friend, like she's from California, and she passed as a white, and she doesn't have any connection to Okinawa, but like she lives in Okinawa for a long time. So she learned about, from me and from the experience, she learned about Okinawa, and what I find it is really helpful is like when she's talking about Okinawa with other English-speaking, like international people coming to Japan, and whatever like people say, oh, Okinawa, I want to go to Okinawa for the resort. And then in that group, she would say, wait a minute, like this is the history they have, and if you go to Okinawa, like this is something you need to know. And that's really helpful for me, because I cannot go everywhere and explain to everybody. And it's okay, you don't need to know everything, but it's just like, wait a moment, people, like, let's learn this together. Like, that's really helpful. I find it is really, that's like a great allyship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I lived in a Japanese home, and I did not understand anything. I mean, at one point I thought I was going to literally lose my mind. Because everything's covered. Everything's covered in a this polite language. So, and you know, it's 59, 60. There are no. There was the trails of World War II that we were in. So, and then I think that became very hardwired in Japanese. That would omit you.
It's I would say like before like we start coming to UN, people, even like indigenous people from all over the world, think like Japan is really good country. And then we talk about, you know, our issues, and then they say, oh, Japan is just as the same as my country. And we're not doing it to, you know, their fame is gone or something, not for the bad reason. We do it because we are the people living in the islands. And this is for the Japanese government too. You know, Japan should be a really good country. They should, you know, work for the environmental rights, you know, human rights and language revitalization. They can help. They have power. So let's do it together. This is a platform for doing the government and indigenous people sitting together in the arena, and we have rights to talk about it. So this is really great opportunity, and this is rare. Other than this, and one in Geneva, we don't have any platform to get together with government to talk about it. So we need to, you know, our situation should be decolonized, and then the colonizers should be decolonized for themselves. And we, you know, do it for the planet, you know, peoples and everything. So it's like a really good thing, but it's hardly like, you know, it was sealed and then hidden for a long time. So now it's time to talk about it.
I would love to know your stories of caring for waters, but later.
I do believe that like if better channels directly to the government existed, like perhaps we wouldn't need to be here, but those don't really seem to exist right now. And the question I think that we have to think going forward is how do we actually get the government to respond to us? As we've said multiple times, we try to schedule appointments with the permanent mission and they either ignore our requests. No, they just ignore our requests. What am I talking about? There hasn't been any or. They just ignore our requests. We send them we send them every year. This year we had a staffer from the Japanese permanent mission there every couple days. We try to go up to talk to her after, and she gets out of there as fast as she can. Go talk to the representative of Japan. He won't talk to us at all, even when he's sitting right in front. We're like, sir, hello, like we would like to talk to you. Looks the other way. And so the question becomes, how do we actually get them to the table now? because I think we have so many challenges with Ryukyu. And we bring them up not from a place of being anti-Japan. We are pro-Ryukyuan. We want to see our people's situation bettered. And right now, the challenges that come to us are byproducts of colonialism, byproducts of militarization, and therefore we actively need Japan to be better. So it sounds like we're very anti-government, anti-Japan. They haven't given us a reason yet to trust that they're going to do the right thing. I think we're here fighting for us.
This might be subterfuge, but like how the Maori in New Zealand, went ahead and declared the river had rights, even though the government didn't. But there might be pathways in through the environment that would get, and then people start to pay, they just took away our clean water bottling thing or something.
Thank you so much for the comments and the questions. We are about halfway through our time here today, so we're going to do a quick change of panelists that are sitting. Thank you. Let's see here. Maybe I'll set my Elsa here. Okay. Minutes each, and then 10 minutes Q&A, and then we'll talk about the UN at the end. Okay. And I will, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Yeah, I think we'll be okay, because it does run over. Let's see here. Okay, so I, Wanne, Sakiyama, Midoroton Sakiyama, Mariko Yaibi. I am here to speak about the evolving Okinawan identity in the modern world. I don't know how many folks are familiar with the word champuru, but I will explain that in a moment. But before I begin, I'd like to talk about my own personal positionality. As you can see represented here, there are many diverse ways that the Okinawan expression shows up. We have people from Okinawa born and raised. We have Okinawa people born, raised, and then moved to the United States. We have Brazilian Okinawan Uchinanchu, and we have mixed race Uchinanchu. And so my perspective speaking to you all today, the lens that I am bringing is among many things, but I am second generation. I am mixed with maternal roots in the Hajichi region. My paternal roots are here in Vermont in the US, but back to England. My father is a retired US Navy dentist. My formative years were spent on the East Coast, but my elementary school years I did in Okinawa at Kitanaka-Gusku. I was in Kitanaka-Gusku in 1995 when the rape incident happened. I spoke about that a little bit last year, but that stayed with me as a third grader. And others, I'm a military brat, I'm woman, queer, college-educated, middle class, able-bodied. The list goes on, but that is where I am speaking from. English speaking, and I have a little bit of Nihongo. All of that to say, I am Indigenous Ryukyuan. I am this. So, champuru. Many of you know Goya champuru, which is a very famous Okinawan dish. You can see this here. But it is the Uchinaguchi word that means mixed or something blended together. So beyond the food of Goya champuru or champuru, it's kind of taken on a deeper cultural meaning of blending influences, of blending identity and histories. I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge where the Okinawan or the Ryukyuan diaspora has gone. And so for those of you that are in the room, we actually have this incredibly large banner of the history of the Ryukyus. So I invite you afterwards to take a look and see the very lengthy history of where Okinawa started and the emigration of Okinawans outside of Okinawa or Ryukyu, and then how we are all continuing to interact with one another. But how we are no less Ryukyuan. So here are some fun facts from the podcast that Ina-san mentioned earlier. Episode 6, we talk about where the diaspora is. So here on the right-hand side, the largest diaspora, Ryukyuan diaspora, is actually in Japan, and then followed by Brazil, the US, and Peru. And each of those places brings along a myriad of benefits and also challenges for the Okinawans or Ryukyuans that are in those spaces. Sort of what Dina was saying in Japanese just now is that it is actually very challenging to be an Okinawan, sort of the phenotype of being visually looking Asian and then also existing in a place like Japan, whereas here in the United States, it's very diverse. And I'm sure Victor can speak about what it means to be Asian in Brazil, in a place like Brazil. So context really matters. And then we get mixed super fast. So while I am half mixed race, it's very quickly that the visual of what a Okinawan person looks like can shift. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. So I would like to call in to resist the temptation to compare. So these are so many pitfalls, right? Of who is Ryukyuan, who is Okinawan, and are you Okinawan enough? And as a mixed person, I deal with this quite a lot. So what we look like and where we are located has and will continue to shift. It will get more champuru, it will get more mixed. We are still indigenous. So example, Okinawa-based Ryukyuan experience is profoundly different than the Brazilian Ryukyuan experience, different from Hawaii experience. Even in the US, Hawaii is different from California, which is different from the East Coast. Very different cultural experiences of those geographic locations. So how we are Ryukyuan shows up a little differently, and we are still indigenous Ryukyuan. So, and we're up against pitfalls of purity culture that tells us what is authentic, right? And this markets and sells our own indigeneity back to us. Maybe we have experienced this before. It's like, oh, I don't know if that's quite Okinawan, but nice try. No, we are still indigenous Ryukyuan, just as we are. There is this temptation to divide the self, to be categorized into percentages, or blood quantum. So like, oh, you're half dane. No, I am fully indigenous Ryukyuan. The percentages does not matter. And that leads to the final piece here is the external pressures to conform, to fit neatly into somebody else's box of a definition to make them more comfortable. Don't do that. We are indigenous Ryukyuan. Unapologetically, we are ourselves. And it is, I think, personally, I do believe that is the best way we can combat this sort of oppression and colonization, is to just show up as we are, unapologetically. You don't have to do anything. We are already everything that we need to be. So, contrast to that, embrace the diverse experience of what it means to be Ryukyuan. So being in diaspora, as I've said before, can cause erasure and bring up some complications that may be challenging to navigate. However, those situations allow us unique opportunities for connection, for collaboration, allies, and different skill sets. We speak different languages. We have different approaches of how we can get through networking to different communities, and all for moving Ryukyu forward. Yes. Okay, and then critical importance of visibility. So we are informed by and are also informing our external surroundings. Seeing people who look like us or have similar experiences affirm and validate our existences. That's one of the driving factors of why the Ichariba Choodee podcast, which I am a co-founder of, came into existence. Nobody was talking about our stories, especially in diaspora and mixed, and I was personally like shocked to find out there were so many Okinawans living where I didn't even know. I thought I was just one person, but as we connect, we become more powerful. We see these different visual representations of ourselves reflected back, and we are stronger together. leading into the power of technology and SNS or social medias. This gives us more than ever, our ancestors did not have access to this, but windows into our Choodee, our families, brothers and sisters, their experiences in places like Japan, Okinawa, Brazil, Peru, Hawaii. And so you can see what it looks like to be Okinawan in these places. I'm almost out of time, but I did want to share, this is a poem and art that I made in 2021 when I first started my identity journey. I think this may be around the same time we started the podcast. I'll read it, okay. Not belonging has become my superpower, wielding my awkwardness as a disarming mechanism of infiltration. Gaijin, foreigner, white passing, Shimanchu, diaspora, not from here or there or anywhere really. Familiar enough to be comforting, different enough to not quite be us. Untethered and without roots, where do you call home? Just barely beginning to comprehend my privilege, born of life choices my ancestors made, a mother who chose to leave her island, a fortuitously persistent military father, granted an inherited citizenship within a first world nation through simple and sheer ancestral colonial luck or indigenous poor luck, evolutionary circumstance. And even then, I am just barely scratching the surface of the complex unseen traumas and magic suspended in my blood that we are neither and all colonizer and colonized, victim and perpetrator, but with proportional capacity to love, to heal, to rewrite our futures. Like the death and birth of star sand or the refining of sea glass, like vivid bingata, we are brighter for the crisp white edges that surround us. When did that biologically reflexive fight, flight invert into an effective social survival mechanism? The wounded healer inquires and answers. Okay, I will end with two quick things. So Ryukyuans have historically embraced diversity. We are known for our welcoming culture and perspective. We have always welcomed champuru. Ryukyuans understood the essential need to embrace diversity, to learn from one another, to share culture and spirit. Being diverse or mixed is our strength, not a contradiction. We are champuru unapologetically, continuously, and powerfully mixed, and we will continue to define what comes next. One last PSA. If you are interested in mixed identity or Okinawan identity, we will be having a one-day event on Saturday, November 7th here in New York. It'll be in person only, unfortunately, details coming soon, but it is the same title as the panel presentation today. So Champuru, Evolving Okinawa Identity in the Modern World. This is one of hopefully many identity conferences that we will have here on the East Coast, and it is hosted by the Okinawan American Association of New York. So thank you very much. And as your MC, I will pass it over to Ko Shigeko Lewis, who will speak on Hajichi. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Okay, I have to stand. I can't look at the screen turned like this. It's gonna get to me. It's weird. Yeah, it's an awkward position. I'll stand behind you, though, so I'm not standing in front of you. Okay. No, it's good. I'll still need to stand. Okay. Hi, Saikusuyo, Waneko Yaibin. My name is Ko. I'm a Hajicha based out of here in New York City. On Lenape and Canarsie land where I live in Queens. So today I want to talk to you about the continuation of Hajichi. A couple years ago I spoke here kind of about the resources that we use in discussing and learning about Hajichi. And now I want to talk about where we go from there and what our practice is kind of doing with that information today. To get us started though, I will give you a history lesson. You are currently surrounded by, closer? Okay, is this not too loud? Sounds really loud. All right, so brief history lesson. You are surrounded by this history, but what I want to do is frame some of the history of Ryukyu with the history of Hajichi specifically. So the earliest documentation that we have of Ryukyuan tattoos of women's hands, specifically on the back of our hands, is as early as 636 AD. There are documentations of tattoos as early as the 200s, so much prior. We know this is an ancient practice that we've carried for a very long time. In the year of the Satsuma invasion is when we see the first legend of Hajichi that is associated specifically with protection against kidnapping by Japanese of Ryukyuans. Prior to that, we have many other folklore tales of Hajichi, a lot about like saviors coming from the ocean and kind of more spiritual meanings. But that story that we say a lot now and that we repeat and are teaching our children today begins at the same time as the Satsuma invasion. And I think that's a really kind of important framing to keep in mind. Within a century of that, there is documented history of the royal family discussing whether or not Hajichi should be banned. We jump about 200 years after that, and you now have documentation by Japanese government officials discussing the need to educate out Hajichi, and specifically that it is a hideous, unbearable practice to behold. Very shortly after that documentation, we have the annexation of the Ryukyu Islands. Okay, and about a decade later, we see the American explorer Furness, who wrote a lot about the Ryukyuan Islands and specifically recorded information on Hajichi and our tattoos. And that legend has evolved to a story in which a woman is no longer tattooing herself to protect herself or being tattooed to protect her. She's now being tattooed specifically so that she is no longer beautiful and will not be able to get herself a Japanese husband. So the narrative of this story is that she's an amazing weaver. She's been asked to come to Japan and make fabrics there. And they're like, we have to disfigure her before she goes because we can't let them want her. So now Hajichi has gone from being a protective adornment, first a sacred item, to a protective adornment, and now to a trapping to keep women locked into the islands. Ryukyuan education policies in this same year are discussing in detail how they will need to ban Hajichi and how will need to be a process to ban. So I'll show you that document in a second. And then within just a couple of years, the legal ban itself is placed. The penalty for tattooing is detention and fines. And if anyone has a good idea of the value of a yen in Okinawa at this time, let me know. But it's almost a month's salary at least for what it will cost someone if they are caught tattooing specifically, not for having tattoos. Following this ban, the practice of Hajichis changes drastically. So women are tattooing themselves in secret. They're maybe being tattooed in secret. Children are often tattooing themselves to emulate the tattoos that they are no longer being given, that they knew that they would have at one point in their lives. And so these forms of Hajichi are called Ashibi Hajichi and Warabi Hajichi, or Pajichi. And this is the information that we have a lot about of Hajichi. So the women who were interviewed in the 80s and gave us illustrations of their tattoos and told us their stories of Hajichi are coming out of this practice of Hajichi. Everything prior, we don't have many of their narratives. We have hints of oral tradition. And then within that time period as well, we see the mass migrations off of Okinawa and off of Ryukyuan Islands because of the development of poverty and everything that you all know surrounding you in the history. But in this time is the first recording of women being sent back. So 3 migrants to the Philippines arrive, are seen by the other Japanese migrants that are there, and their tattoos are reported to the council, for the Japanese government council there, saying we have to get rid of this is disgusting, don't let them in. And so they're sent back to their homes, and new rules are implemented to limit the migration of Ryukyuan women who have tattoos on their hands. And now we have painted a picture where we go from having these protected, gifted elements with deep spiritual meaning that we give to our children and that we raise them with, to something that is described as a trap and then literally becomes a trap that traps them in the system of colonization and poverty that has been created around them. So I want to give us that context for Hajichi, kind of as we talk about it. And here's just that little snippet of the Department of Education building their plans for how they will educate the people of the Ryukyuan Islands, and specifically noting that Hajichi is this barbarous custom that does not belong in a civilized society, cannot be left unaddressed, an evil social habit in which ordinary people reject grown women who have little tattooing. We should teach that this is a barbarous custom, meaning that it isn't already, and that it is unsightly in appearance, and we should aim to abolish it. I also just want to note this. There are other practices, such as the noro, which we will need to address, but won't talk about right now. So this is a part of a larger system to re-educate our community and change the way that we speak about ourselves. However, one way we speak about ourselves is in our songs. And in the traditional practice of Hajichi, while a child or while a young woman is being tattooed, you sing to her, you feed her snacks. She's surrounded by people who love her. And we have those stories. So even the women who are doing Warabi Hajichi and tattooing kind of out of this traditional practice still had the songs that they knew, and they sang them to each other, and they sang them to the people who recorded their history as well. And so I just wanted to share a few of them with you. A ring is only a keepsake for as long as it is worn, but the tattoos on my hands will go with me even into the next world. These are each individual songs. I longed for my first fajiki. After I received it, my heart felt at ease. Even if one has money and wealth, it cannot be carried into the afterlife. Let the Hajichi dyed into my hands remain all the way into the next world. And this one is from Amami Oshima, the next one. Amami Oshima, as many of you know, experienced centuries of servitude and slavery and had a very different history than the rest of the Ryukyuan islands, but they had a very similar tattoo practice that they lost much earlier than Hajichi. And yet, despite that, many, many centuries later, these stories of Hajichi were still recorded in songs that were passed on. So this one is really beautiful. If you would give me a keepsake, give me beautiful Hajichi. Aya Haratsuki is how it's written. That will become my keepsake even into the afterlife. If you love me, please give beautiful Hajichi. That will become my keepsake even into the afterlife. Raise your arms, raise them. Let me admire the Aya Hajichi. Open your chest, open it. Let me admire your beautiful breast. And that, to me, paints this idea of just how beautiful Hajichi was seen by our community. If you equate it with the body of a woman on that level, I think it can give us a good idea of what the narrative really was about Hajichi before these re-education campaigns did all the work that they did. And I want to note how our songs are evolving with our communities and evolving with the experiences that we have. So this one is really lovely. When the Yamato watchmen are not there before they come near, tattoo Hajichi. This is from Ogiro Uto, who tattooed shortly after the band. And so I just want to note how our songs retain our resistance and they retain our culture and how important our oral tradition to us is now. And I see I'm almost out of time, but my point here is that this oral tradition is continuing. We have these moments of recorded history that are frozen snapshots of the ways that things have changed over time, but we are continuing to evolve and build this practice. And so it's so important for you to continue to have these conversations amongst yourself, with your hajicha, with your peers as you tattoo, and to keep telling these stories so that we can keep building them and teaching them to each other. Okay, so where does this leave us now? We know that there is a long tradition of timeline-based Hajichi that we have lost the stories from. And so when I approach my practice and when I tattoo individuals, I really encourage this kind of piecemeal approach to get us back to the things that we know existed and not to attempt to fill in the blanks, but to be part of that continuation and to build our practice as we go along and as we collect our tattoos. And my goal for my individual clients is to have narratives that they tell inside of their stories so that when you look at someone who has had their Anma Hajichi, that we know that these hands are so powerful, that they carry so much meaning inside of them. And so I'm going to give just a very quick example of the Ichichibushi, an image that many of us are very familiar with. And I want to give two stories that are told of what this means in those recordings from the 80s, whether the Ichichibushi represents the person who's wearing it, the woman as this pillar in the middle, and her family around her that she holds together and is the bond for her family and the shared heart, or they are the walls of the home around her that trap her inside. And these are these positive, negative versions of how we tell these stories to ourselves. And so when individuals come to me for this kind of tattoo, what I talk to them is about how they are the power inside of their community and how they hold their community together, how they give themselves strength. And I think that these are ways that we can tell this story in that positive light and reclaim the beauty that Hajichi really had. And Yanyu-sachi are a very similar one. You can say that the story points to the marital home, and sometimes that's said so that women, in this very kind of patriarchal idea of women, are given away and they're gone and they're no longer part of the family. Or it's said that it's a prayer that the aim is true. This is a good match and a good marriage and that you'll have success in your future life. And so I really encourage this thought to look at these as ways that they point into our future and the things that we do for ourselves that change us and grow us as individuals, or experiences that change us. And so, okay, I'm done. This is it. So this is our practice today. I just want to give some examples of what this looks like. So here are a few clients. So like graduation celebrations, elements of progression. This person has been tattooed at least 7 times at least, but I've tattooed her more since then, and she's kind of bringing back in that traditional shape of Yanyu-sachi growing over time. We don't tattoo our 4 or 5-year-olds anymore, but we can give them jagwa, which is like henna, and give them temporary hajichi and let them celebrate and enjoy the art of it and be part of it with us. And as someone who I tattooed my first set of hajichi pregnant on my first pregnant Mother's Day, this is so beautiful to me to see the ways that we bring this to our children. And my dream and prayer for hajichi is that it's something that will be a family practice again and something that our children will be raised knowing, so that I don't have clients coming to me saying, I just found out about hajichi last year. This should be knowledge that they have throughout their lives. And this was a really beautiful session where a parent sat with their child while they were tattooed. And I love this, and I love these moments. And I'm just happy to share them all with you. Nifaya Davidu.
That was really beautiful. Thank you so much, Ko. And I will pass it over to Victor Kinjo.
Oh, thanks. It's here. Yeah, I think I will stand too because... Well, so I already introduced myself. I'm Victor Kinjo. I'm a Ryukyuan Brazilian, so third generation. My great-grandparents and my grandparents came to Brazil in the 30s. And today I'm going to talk... Can you help me? I'm going to talk a little bit about arts and planetary health and ancestral wisdom. Now, this is also part of research. I'm starting now in the State University of São Paulo Institute of Arts, connecting these dots. I feel as being like a Ryukyuan Brazilian means that I'm also in an indigenous territory, and I cannot work directly in Okinawa, but representing or increasing the representation of Ryukyu in Brazil, also in alliance with the indigenous peoples of Brazil, which are many different peoples. Né? So I would like to start very briefly because maybe all of us know, but we should not forget the context that in which we are inserted. So in the 2024 was the warmest, hottest year on record. Many different studies are showing this. And this, of course, is linked also to a very deep context of social environmental injustice. So in this graphic, we can see that 1.6% of the richest people of the world have almost half of the wealth of the world. So this is the context we are. And the context that the colonization is taking still is very present in the world. And of course, this has deep impact in how the poorest people are being impacted by climate change in a different way. And besides, we can see the increasing of the budget or the spending in military in a worldwide dimension. So in 2024, we reached almost $3 trillion. Is the highest amount ever recorded. So if you're struggling with resources, money, this is where our money is going to. And here we can see this by country, so how the countries are investing. This is 2024. So the CIPRIS, the Stockholm Institute for Peace Research, they will deliver a new report next week for the data of 2025, which is probably increasing. Here we can see the context of the Okinawan base, it's here. But we can see many, more than 700 military bases around the world. So we are also in this research looking for solutions. So we are departing from this context, but bringing the idea of planetary health. This year's UN Permanent Forum topic was about indigenous health, securing indigenous health in context of conflict. And of course, we could learn that indigenous health is not just about the health of indigenous peoples, which is very important, but also an indigenous approach to health that could change the way that we see health, because planetary health is asserting that our health, the health of indigenous peoples, and maybe from everyone, is linked to the health of the lands, the health of the waters. So we should all work together to overcome our challenges towards planetary health. Here are some of the issues we are facing in Okinawa linked to the water problem of the contamination of the groundwater and the Hajichi River water by PFOS, which is a chemical coming from the military bases from the US and Japan. And we are struggling very much now because this is the water source for more than 400,000 people in Ryukyu, Okinawa now. oops, there's one slide missing, but I was also talking about the Henoko base, which is a base that is being constructed in the north of Okinawa against the will of local population. And yeah, I mean, all this, as Betsy made this question in the last panel, last session, of course, like the colonial problem is also like an environmental problem. And I can see this in Ryukyu and in Brazil. So here, oh, sorry. Oh. So we're, as I said, I live in Brazil. Then we've been working for like a way of regenerating because they cannot act directly in Okinawa. So I'm working in our indigenous land of Brazil. And so this is a project that we started in 2015. It's an arts residency located in the Atlantic forest. We only have 11% of this forest. It's not the Amazon, it's in the coast. All the Brazilian coast was a forest. So we are working there through art to regenerate. So we could make now from 10 years, we could regenerate making reforestation with agroforestry, which I think it's something that, as you can see, is totally possible, and we can also replicate this ancestral technology also in Ryukyu lands, if possible. Because also the solution for climate change is very simple, it's just to reforest the most we can. It's an ancestral technology that we already know. So here we also do like some community meetings because regeneration is also about regeneration, the community ecosystem network in the land. And here is I would like to talk about a performance that we made in the Biennial of São Paulo last year, curated by Bonaventure So Bejenikung, which is a Cameroonian curator based in Berlin. And of course, we had to have like an African curator to, for the first time, have the work of an Okinawan artist, which is Mao Ishikawa, a photographer who photographed the post-war in Okinawa. And because of this work, we mobilized our Okinawan community to honor and go salutate this work at the biennial. So this is Laismi Wahiga, is an anthropologist and performer, and my friend who is very engaged also in Okinawan Ryukyuan indigenous identification in Brazil. And here's some images of our work at the biennial. So we brought more than 100 artists from our community to participate of these days with dance and percussion. Like as we saw in the studies, like because we don't have many registrations from the Ryukyu kingdom from our own past, then like our body becomes this picture, so dance, when you see like a classic Buyo, Ryukyu Buyo dance, then you can see the memory of this ancient kingdom that were colonized. And about the songs I've already said, and Cole also reinforced how important this is our literature, and this is our history is in our songs. So we made a procession with the Eisa, dancing and singing to our ancestors. And this is the koto of my grandmother. Like my partner is also learning, so we are playing together, playing and singing together. And here is a group of Hajichi that Cole was presenting now. So we had more than 40 women that was made Hajichi by the Hajicha Hiromi Toma, which is also one of the co-creators of this performance. And so she could gather all these women that she tattooed during the past years to make this performance ritual where we could also talk about indigeneity and like our history in this place, which is maybe probably one of the most important of Brazilian cultural field. So here she's tattooing her mother, in this performance. Yeah, it was very meaningful. Sorry, I forgot to tell the title of the performance, which is Choodee, which is an ancient song also of our tradition. Birds that echoes their song through the valleys. Né? I mean, our tears are crossing the valleys. Then we went up where the Mauishikawa's work was. And this is amazing because this, for example, is a work of an African artist, Tanka. So we could feel the energy of all these artists from all different parts of the world. I'm finishing, okay. And here, and then we came to honor to see the pictures, the photos of Mauishikawa, and we made a big circle around it. And we, as a community, we could make a salutation to this work, thanking also like honoring like these Okinawan women also that went through so much. Yeah, well, just one last reminder. So we also are working locally, as I said, also in the Choodee River project. I mean, we have many rivers in Brazil that are like the Hajichi River in Ryukyu, and many other rivers in the world are suffering, are being poisoned. So Betsy was also talking about the rights of the river. So also for the Hajichi River, like besides cleaning the water, which is very important, like the river itself has the right to be free and clean. So the poisoning needs to be questioned itself. So we have a lot of work to do together, but I thank you very much for the presence and that we can dialoguing, working together. Maybe we can overcome some of these challenges. So,
Thank you so much, Victor-san. That actually brings us to the conclusion of this particular panel, and now we're going to open it up for some questions for the folks that have just presented. So if anybody from the audience has any questions. Misoma.
It's just like, so Achan had the mic here, but like she's like, where's mic? So korewa, like my mom always say, misoma. Yeah, like you have misoma. Glasses on the head. Where are my glasses? Misoma.
Nia Deviru. All right, over to you. Could you say your name and then your question?
My name is Eliza Harold. I'm here with Betsy, and I have the Water Unity Network, which is helping communities come back into relationship with water as source. And in my journey as a teenager, I'm descendant from the Wanderers. I'm an American mutt. Really have no clear sort of lineage. And in my search for identity, I began calling myself Indigenous before it was a term used by the UN, because I felt like I'm of a place, and where's my place? And okay, I'm not Native, even though I have Native blood, and so my understanding of the being Indigenous to me is we're all Indigenous to Earth, every single one of us. The Indigenous cultures, to me, have that connection, have that lineage, have that remembrance of what it means to be Indigenous to Earth. And so I'm in strong support of Indigenous cultures reclaiming territory in our own hearts and minds, as well as land. And so it's just an interesting to hear your experience from a small island, and with so much persecution for being Indigenous, and yet there's a deeper identity that I think we all need to claim, which Victor spoke to, is being connected to the living systems that sustain us, and finding that right to have that connection with our rivers, to have that connection with the biomes that support us. And so I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, go.
I think one thing that a lot of the communities in kind of the pan-Indigenous movement that create allyship amongst ourselves and our shared experience connect over is the specific experience of colonization and loss. The idea that I resonate with, that I feel like you're saying, is that respect for humanity itself is what will move us forward and is what we all need. We come from a community that is known famously for being a blue zone, for being one of the spaces in the world where we lived to ancient times. Like when you look at some of these early explorer records of trying to find Ryukyus, they're looking for the happy immortals, literally the idea that we are these incredibly healthy people. And now Okinawa is the poorest prefecture in Japan. We were colonized and robbed of many of the things that made us special to the world, that were exciting things that they wanted to extract, and that is the shared experience of a lot of people in Indigenous communities who come together to share our history and try and learn from each other. And there is so much beauty in all of our cultures, but I think when in spaces like this, when we're looking for that connection, that is the shared experience that we're building from and trying to rebuild.
Thank you. Any other question? Oh.
Just a brief comment. I think what we're trying to develop also in this project is like a dialectical approach to identity that in the same time recognize and like the specificity of each one's identity in the end, né? And from the colonial perspective and queer perspective too, né? In the same time that we create like a sense of belonging to the earth, as a planetary belonging, as a earthbound people from the earth, that not just people actually, but also the other living beings. So the waters, the fishes of the Hija River, and the birds and the plants and the trees, like all these living beings, they are part of this community, like earthbound community. So how can we address like this dialectically, respecting this both sides of the same process, and decolonizing and queering the world, because the way it was didn't work. So as we said, as we saw.
Please.
I think one thing as well that all of us talk about a lot, but we're also very aware of, is that for all of us who are not currently living in our islands, we're Indigenous, but not to where we are living right now. And so I think all of us feel great responsibility to also be, I don't like the term ally, but being good visitors, being good neighbors. And that looks different for all of us. Professionally, like I am a historian, I teach. So where I'm at in Santa Cruz, that means teaching Amamutsan history in my classes, making sure that we are also like giving awareness and pointing to the Indigenous peoples of the lands in which we're on. And I think that's an ongoing process that we all believe we can still be getting better at, but we have responsibilities as well because we're also settlers, you know?
Thank you, Lex. Yeah, I think I'm going to acknowledge I'm struggling with the comment of Indigenous, and I think there is a lot that needs to come alongside. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with being able to step in and claim Indigenous. And I know at our side panel event that we had on Monday, we all, the folks that were at the UN, talked about the awakening moment to their own indigeneity. And what has kind of woven through all of our conversations is how the word indigenous means something different in each context. So here in the US, you say indigenous and you think of maybe the Native American peoples. And in Japan or Okinawa, you say Senju Minzoku, and you're like, that's primitive. Like, I don't want to be associated with that. And then in Brazil, it's a different situation. I'm saying from my positionality as a US socialized person, this is my perspective of what it might be in Brazil, and I can't speak for that, but I imagine that, okay, it's the Amazon, and so indigenous means something very different to the peoples that live in Brazil. And so I think when I approach indigeneity or how I relate to other indigenous peoples is first really acknowledging position and privilege, and who am I, and what is my relationship to that thing. And so we all have like the traumas and the things that we carry with us, and then we also have to kind of maybe put those things aside and really identify, wow, like I live on Abenaki land up in Vermont, and those people, they're still fighting for their own lands and recognition and their cultures, and what can I do as like Lex was saying, as an indigenous person, not native to this land, but how can I be a good, I think Diana was saying collaborator, right? Like, how can I collaborate and use my positions of privilege to amplify your areas of pain or struggle? Because, again, I'm just echoing everything that people have said, but the struggle is real. We are all facing climate change, and the economy is totally abysmal. And how can we survive this? And we have to survive it together using all of our resources. And when there's a need, or maybe from my privileged space, I can help. But I think that's what I wanted to, Lex?
Just because you brought up climate change, I really quickly want to put a couple statistics out there that relate to what Victor was saying. So Victor had the image of how much military spending happens. And I feel like for our comfort politics, we sometimes like to separate climate disaster, climate change from militarization. But the largest greenhouse gas emitter in the world is the United States military. And I think for many of us who are coming from an American context, the idea of US bases all around the world is pretty normalized. And so I want us to realize for a moment that it's super, super weird. And so US military has almost 800 overseas bases. Anyone have a guess how many military bases the country with the next most military bases has? Noriko-san, what'd you guess? Like, which country other than the US has the next amount of military bases? Yeah. So the US has almost 800 overseas bases. The country with the next most has 5. I think it's France, actually. I need to double check. It's been a while since I had the statistic in my mind. That's a crazy difference between 735 and 5. And so we are normalized ourselves into believing that this is all normal. And meanwhile, it's contributing to climate change. The statistic that Victor put up about how much defense spending costs, we as Ryukyuans are particularly well positioned, and we must be critiquing the system, because Japan in December just allocated a budget in the Diet that will make it overtake Russia and become the 3rd largest military spender in the world. We have to be talking about this all in one package because they're all connected. And US militarism, Japanese militarism, climate change, we cannot separate it. It's the same multi-headed beast.
Oh, okay. Let's Shinako-san, and then I think there's a question over here, and then we're going to talk about the UN. So Shinako-san,
one thing I need to mention as indigenous people from Ryukyu, the same military situation when U.S. contaminate the liver in Germany, they apologize to the community and then they pay to make the facility to clean water. But when it comes to Ryukyu, they don't respond anything. And then even Japanese government let them do it. We don't have any rights to go into the base to do the investigation, like a survey or anything. So clearly it's point A, point B, it goes through the U.S. military base. It's clearly contaminated, it goes through the base. And then we can even see they are using the forms and things. But, never admit, no compensation. And Japan even cut the money to clean up the water. So we are the poorest people, in Japan, and we have to pay for all this cleanup. And furthermore, recently, U.S. military requested the local, community to send clean water to them because their water in the base is contaminated. This is our situation. This is what, indigenous, people are facing, and then it's really needed for the U.S. people, in the United States should know it, so that we can get together to do something, because we're really we're less than 1% in the population of Japan, and not many people in Okinawa speak English. We don't have much, power or tools to solve this problem. So we came here to communicate you guys. Please help us. Please get together and then do something with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
Hi. My name is Taylor. I'm a political writer and with largely an academic background, and my area of focus very much relates to this type of topic. I basically focus on the intersectionality between, broadly speaking, indigenous rights, human rights, localized issues such as this, as well as large-scale, what they would call national security studies. So basically large-scale things like China, Russia, US, and basically the intersection of those two things. Multiple panelists here today have spoken in some different way about construction of bases on Okinawa. I don't know a lot about this specific issue, but I'm assuming that's a military type thing. So my question is, obviously, totally different topic. In the larger scale theater, there is a huge thing about Chinese buildup and tension between Japanese and China. Academics talk about this all the time. I'm just curious, I don't have an exact targeted question, but how does that major concern in that Pacific theater, China-Japanese competition, come into play here in this context, in this localized context? I just wonder if there's any.
Thank you. That's a great question. Shinako-san.
So our island is so militarized. I'm from Okinawa Island, and then over 15% is already the U.S. military base. And we were told, after the rape case, we were told that this one facility will close, but they required to make another one instead of returning one. And then we were told this is for the security, and then it's reduced the burden of Okinawa. But now, that's 30 years ago. But now it's getting they're so straightforward that we're not gonna return the base, and we're gonna create the base using Japanese tax. And then this is for you. And then China is dangerous, because of the China's friend. We have to have more Japanese bases. And then the self-defense forces bases from Amami, Okinawa, Miyako, Yaeyama, Yonaguni. So many new bases. And then even it's first day, no, it's just a security, Coastal Guard, or just watching a couple people stationed there. But it went to the military, a missile facility. And then furthermore we do referendum, we do, lobby to the government, say this is not right, so you shouldn't do it, because that's escalate the risk of being attacked. That's what's the experience we had in 80 years ago. So we don't want that happen again. So can we discuss, or can we talk about it first? But it's really obviously, it's don't listen to the local people, and then just here and there they're making military bases, and the expansion is there. And in Yonaguni is a small town, and it's almost like one force is the Japanese self-defense force personnel, and then the family. So it's changing the situation of the self-determination, or a local voice. So it's just ignoring the local voice, and then so militarized, and not just the Henoko-based new one is open. The another one is, just start the boarding of the, boarding survey for the assessment to build up the new base. So how many more bases we should have? And once it's there, and once it's open, and we need to deal with another 100 years about this military issue, not just contamination. So many aircraft, even crash into the elementary school, and then many bullets come into the community, and a fire, like a mountain fire, contamination, rape, hit and run, and everything. We're so exhausted about this.
I don't even know how I follow that up, but I'm going to try. All right, I'll start at the beginning. The Futenma Replacement Facility. In 1995, there was a major rape case in which 3 US servicemen gang raped a 12-year-old girl in Okinawa. There was massive protest, and as a result, the government of Japan and US said that they would be closing Marine Corps Air Station Futenma. In 1997, they decided that it would be, the Futenma Replacement Facility would be to add a Marine Corps airstrip onto Camp Schwab in Henoko, which is to the north, a less densely populated area. For reference, Futenma is in the most densely populated part of Okinawa Island. Donald Rumsfeld, of all people, called it the most dangerous base in the world. As we've gone on in time, Okinawa Prefecture residents, because they do not take our indigenous right to self-determination, they don't let just indigenous Ryukyuans decide. It has to be a democratic process of civic residents, have multiply voted against the construction of that air station. It has a lot of problems. They're creating land by landfilling on top of a coral reef to build this airstrip. There's been many challenges. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but the governments keep insisting that it needs to be built. And up until recently, the idea was that Futenma would close when that new air station opened. Now they're saying, we're going to open the new air station. Oh, also, we're going to keep Futenma open too. So it's just adding. That was number one. There is it's hard to get official statistics of the US military, but Okinawa Island, just the main island, is 70 miles long, 12 miles wide at its widest, 3 miles wide on its thinnest. And so it's a very small island. That island alone, it is estimated, hosts 1/8 of all US military personnel outside the United States. And so it's a very densely US military population. There are 32 US military bases and installations on Okinawa. In the Ryukyu archipelago, so including those smaller islands within the chain, there are 51 Japanese bases and installations, and counting. They include the missile silos that, or missile defense bases that Shinako was talking about. And increasingly, they are claiming more land in the name of national security, and they're forcing Ryukyuans out. This is where the politics, and especially stoked fear about China, it used to be North Korea, but now it really is China, is coming into play, because they are saying things to people in Yonaguni and in Miyako that you should move to Okinawa Island now, and we might compensate you, we might incentivize you to move, because there's gonna come a day when China's gonna attack and you're gonna have to leave anyways, and we can't guarantee you return. And so this rhetoric of fear, especially around China, is very prominent right now. There was a missile launch by North Korea over Okinawa a couple years ago, and I tell this story because it shows just how little folks in Japan actually know about Okinawa, because these newscasters were broadcasting from Tokyo to Okinawa saying, go hide in the subway stations. We don't have subways. Like, there's just a fundamental lack of knowledge about the actual situation on the ground. And it's incredibly frustrating to me because what we need is de-escalation by all parties. De-escalation by the US, by Japan, by China, all of them to turn down the temperature. If that's the one takeaway from this week. Everybody needs to de-escalate. I'm sure we talked about this with some of our brothers and sisters from Taiwan who are concerned about the same things. Everybody needs to de-escalate. While we are waiting for that de-escalation to happen, the fear is being used and twisted as a reason for our islands to be even more militarized. And as Uchinanchu especially, we know what happens when war comes to our islands. We cannot afford another Battle of Okinawa. So.
We're actually at time. No, it's totally fine. It was a really great question. We had hoped to have another 10 minutes to talk about the UN related, but it is after 4 o'clock. Yeah, I think what I would like to do is maybe Shinako-san, if you would like to make a quick announcement, and then Victor-san, and then I would like for us to do just like a prayer for Okinawa, and then we can close with, we have some music, and then we can take a photo together and end on more of a positive note, and that's not to erase any of the difficult things that we're experiencing right now, but one of the things that Okinawa or Ryukyuans are known for is just our spirit and our ability to find joy and cultivate and resilience, and that through celebrating together. So it's not erasing, it's celebrating who we are, and that's our biggest form of resistance. So Shinako-san, okay? Okay, I will pass to Victor.
Thank you. Just a last reminder of our ancestral knowledge from Ryukyu. So we had a bell in our kingdom that is written Bangkok Shinyo. So like our diplomacy, our way of being in the world is like to be a bridge to the world. Ne? So actually, Ryukyu was a place where the Chinese and Japanese were meeting, also with the Southeast Asia. Ne? So like, I feel that we historically, our people were like a bridge between Japan and China, like a place where we could celebrate this meeting and this friendship, né? Because another ancestral wisdom we have is Ichariba Choodee, which means we are all sisters and brothers when we meet, which means that's why we are meeting now, so we are creating yui, né? We are creating bonds between us, and I think this should be the diplomacy of the world. Why not? I mean, when we meet, and when the performing arts, our dance, all our performing arts culture were made because when the foreigner arrives, you give the best you have, which is arts, which is dance. So what if all this budget were going to create like a Pacific diplomatic culture globally? I think Brazilian perspective on these issues is also very similar. So we have hope. No? We should have hope in our hearts to keep going. And I mean, we are not against anybody. No? We just, everyone, and this is my last ancestral wisdom, which is also in the foundation statement of ACSILs, which is Amayu. Like we are all looking for Amayu. Amayu means to live peacefully. Everyone in this world wants to be happy, wants to live peacefully, right? So this is what I wish to all of us. And thank you very much for being with us. And let's keep dreaming and working together.
Wow. That was amazing. Thank you. Yeah, let's just hear from our panel. I'll pass it to Ko, and then we can just say one, and then maybe go down the line of just one remark, one prayer, one hope.
Okay, so I graduated med school this month, or I am graduating, and when the UN, thank you, the UN summit this year was about the health of Indigenous people, and I know Hajichi can seem very arbitrary to health, but cultural identity, connection, and confidence in that cultural identity and the strength that comes from community are major factors in our health, and are specifically shown in clinical research to be major factors in Indigenous health specifically. across communities. And so I want us, my prayer is just that our health continues to grow in all of these ways. And we have that history in us, we have it in our bones, and it will come forward.
Last word? Okay. I would just say, like, this is hard. Like, who wants to do this? This is really hard. But my grandmother, who is from Kachin, the Katsuren area, and I don't know, she brings food all the time. And like her husband, which is military veteran, and he does fish a lot. And the fish comes to our table all the time. And like, I'm like, oh, like, and she does so many things for her grandchild, like me. And like one time she say, "Kana-san chunkai ni de kuira rindo." It's like I asked what's the meaning, and I do this because I love you. It's just stick to my mind. So I do this work because I want to face. Because I love my island. I love my people. I do this because I love. And we do this because we love for our people. I just wanted to say, Kana-san chunkai ni dukuira rindo.
Thank you. So we indigenous people have like a superpower. We know how to, keep the earth alive in a healthy way. So I think it's really high time to get together. All indigenous people have responsibility to tell it to the world how to live peacefully, friendly, and it's not the separating people, or it's just claim for our own rights, not your right. It's nothing like that. So indigenous movement is actually making harmony to live in the world. That's what I think, and that's like we as Ryukyuan has responsibility for that. So I want to keep on that and share it with you. I
feel like the easy answer is I would like us to live in, be able to just think for a moment about being able to be Uchinanchu and not be in such like survival mode, whether it's because of the poverty rates or the militarization. So that would be the dream. But I think one thing that I want to just end on is that there's going to be people out there who are not going to agree with what we are saying up here, and some of those people may be Ryukyuan peoples, and despite us disagreeing, we are still doing this work and we're fighting for them too. Like, we're not excluding them just because they don't agree with our methods. At the end of the day, we all want what's best for Ryukyuan peoples. We want to move forward as proud, empowered indigenous peoples of our islands. What's your
last word? Is there a way you can say, right here and now, may we unite all our hearts together, just at this moment? Yeah, that you would say it, and that we actually join.
Yeah. Maybe we can say Chimuachi. Let's heart together. Chimuachi. Chibati Ichabira. Chimuachi. You want to try? You want to say?
I would like to actually read Nozomi-san's prayer. So we had one panelist who was not able to join us today because of transportation. So Nozomi-san, you were here in spirit. And her prayer, and please forgive me, this is Uchinaguchi. Unji washiririba yaminu yunu kumuchi. Appreciation for gifts of ancestors will light the path through the darkest night. And so that is also my prayer of inclusivity. Even if we are not here physically, we are all here together. So may we remember that even if we don't see each other, we have each other's as support. Even in diaspora, when we disperse from this place, we still have each other. And with that, I think, let us all stand and say this wonderful idea of our hearts meeting together. じゃあ、しなこさん、お願いします。うにげさびら。
So in Okinawa, we do the big sound, the yubibue. So I wanted to do, but like I'm scared of scare everyone because it's really big sound. So like because we celebrate, we need to make a sound. So I will do it. So don't make your heart attack. いいよ。うん。
チムアーチチムアーチチバティイチャビラチムアーチチバティイチャビラカチャーシーカチャーシー
はい、写真撮ります。